to or back to my channel. My name is Hanadi and I am an intern doctor living in the UAE. Today's video is going to be all about how I studied during medical school. The reason why I decided to film this video is because I do think I did a pretty good job. I graduated medical school with excellence, and I also made sure to not lose myself outside of medicine. Now, I would like to preface by saying just because this method of studying worked for me does not necessarily mean that it is going to work for you. It is all about trial and error and figuring out what method works for you. Another thing I'd like to say is that I did way better off during my clinical years than my preclinical years, and just because of the way I like to learn as a person, I am very hands-on and I learn when I do things. And I also do think that my clinical years were so much more interesting for me, but I will be sharing with you guys how I studied during both. Last disclaimer before I start is that I was the COVID batch, so a lot of my preclinical years were spent online. I did have a lot of freer time, I didn't have to commute, I was staying at home, it was easier to study. Let's dive right in. I'm going to be starting with my preclinical years. The method of studying that I personally used is note-taking. So during COVID, all of the lectures were recorded. Even if they were going on in real time, they would be recorded. So I would go through the recording of that lecture and I would write the notes in my own words of what I have understood from what the professor was saying, and I would make sure that the lecture would not take 1, max 2 pages from my notebook. So I have an example right here. I just opened up this random notebook from year 3, my neurology block. So this was a physiology lecture, and as you can see, this is 1 page, and then right here stops, and then this is a new lecture. After going ahead and writing notes for that lecture, I would read over my notes once again. How does this method actually help you learn anything? The main mistake that people go through when they write notes is that they tend to copy paste whatever is in the lecture or copy paste whatever your professor is saying. And that way you are not actually benefiting from your notes. And here's why. Before writing anything down, make sure that you truly understand, because you will not be able to write it down in your own words if you don't already have it truly understood. It's kind of like trying to explain something to someone. When you are writing in your notes, pretend that you want to explain it for future you whenever you want to go ahead and read it back again. So how can you truly write it down in your own words if you have not understood it? This process probably takes the longest. It would take me 2 or 3 hours on one lecture. However, that is the most time that lecture is ever going to take from you. It takes time, especially if you're studying about something for the first time, to actually really understand it. However, once you do, it is so much easier for you in the long run. I have finished taking notes for that lecture. I will open up questions related to the lecture. Now, by this time, I'm going to be honest, my brain is already tired from this lecture. I have spent 2 or 3 hours on it, so I don't want to go ahead and do so many questions. I will just do 2 to 5 questions, random questions, to make sure that I have understood the lecture, and then I will close it up and move on to the next one. On the weekend, what will I do is that I will go ahead and read my notes for the week's lectures, going through my notes and the slides, making sure that everything important is already mentioned in my notebook. The reason why I do that is because during final season, which I am coming to, I will not open the PDF or the PowerPoints at all. My sole revision would be from my notes. So as you can see, for example, if I had my neurology exam, I would just read through all of this, and yes, it takes a while. However, I am going back and revising all of the rotations material. I don't need to open up a million PDFs. I don't need to waste time on slides that don't have high yield information. It's all already in my notebook. Okay, so we're done with the rotation. Final season is here. What do? I focus on 2 things. I am rereading my notes again. It is me revising. Another thing that I think is the most important is solving a lot of practice questions. During the 2 weeks of final season, I am just solving. If you are going through the material and not testing your knowledge with practice questions, that is where you are going wrong. So that pretty much sums up how I studied for my preclinical years. I know that a lot of people used Anki or flashcards, but the thing with me, I am a very visual learner. I will remember what I wrote, where I wrote in the page, form tables for me to remember. And another plus is that your notes will always be with you. If in medical school I was on my neurology rotation, if there was something that I did not remember, because then again it's so easy to forget the basics, all I have to do is just go through that particular note. Now moving on to the clinical years, which is different just because you do not have so much time. Also, the hospital does take a lot of effort from you. If you want to know more about the clinical years, I do have a video that I have already uploaded that tells you guys how to make the most out of your clinical years. The way I have spent my clinical years is something that I am truly proud of. If I go back in time, I would not have done it any other way. I know what I'm about to say would probably be common sense to a lot of people, but it is to truly spend your clinical years making the most of your time at the hospital. Stay at the hospital and learn from it, especially if you are placed in a hospital with so much good exposure. A lot of people would skip the hospitals or find a room and just study in. But why would you do that when you can go and see the cases right in front of you? You will not forget a case that you see. Go and take history from the patient. Go and look into their management plan and see how they're being managed. All of these things will help you solve your exam. During my emergency medicine rotation, I am so sure that I was able to solve my emergency medicine questions in my exams from being so attentive in the ER. Now, let's say that you have seen a certain case at the hospital that day and you did your best to try and learn about it at the hospital. So you go back home and you read on it quickly, especially the cases that are more commonly happening in that certain specialty. And what I would do is write bullet points. I solved practice questions for my clinical years from AMBOSS. I think it is very, very important. You need to get used to those questions because most of the times that is how the questions are going to come up in your exam. It's all about practicing, getting to know why the incorrect answers are incorrect. I also would like to say that it is so normal for you to forget, at least for me. This is something that not many people talk about, but it is so easy to forget information that you do not use regularly, and most of the times you might end up feeling dumb just because you have already studied this before, so you tend to beat yourself up for not remembering. But it is totally okay to go back and read over. It is going to be less time consuming because you have already read this topic and memorized it before. So all you need is a little brush up of your knowledge and you should be fine. That is basically summing it up and what I can think of and what I can remember. But definitely if you have specific questions, make sure to leave them in the comments below and I will reply. I would like to end this video by saying just have fun learning. It is super interesting, especially in your clinical years. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. I wish you a lovely rest of your day and the best of luck, and I will see you guys in my next video.